Welcome, everyone, to Beauty and the Surgeon podcast. I'm Amy. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. I'm joined today, as always, by Nils, our outstanding co-host, and Dr. Martin in spirit. This is the first time we're on episode 160. Nils and I have thought maybe this day would come. Kind of thought maybe it would be because of some mystery illness or something that would cause me to have to carry the podcast by myself. But here we are. So I got Dr. Martin bobbling away over here. But this podcast, you're going to get to listen to a lot of me talking. If you would like to watch the video that goes along with this, I would highly recommend it. You can find that on YouTube at Jason Martin MD. And you can find all of our social media links here at the bottom. We are at Jason Martin MD and at Beauty and the Surgeon podcast, pretty much everywhere on social media. So today we have an interesting topic, and it's one that I think about a lot just because this is what I do. I work for a plastic surgeon. I've worked for a plastic surgeon for a very long time, for over 15 years. And the topic of, your best body, like your best body. We're going to talk about that today. Is it achievable? How do you get it? Do you need plastic surgery to get it? Of course, this is a plastic surgeon's office. You might be surprised that the answer is not always yes. But it is something that, we all think about. We live in our bodies. We have one body in this lifetime. So there's a lot to think about there. So let's jump into our first slide here, where I talk about what working in plastic surgery teaches you or teaches me about body image and perfection. So if we go way back in time to when I first started working for Dr. Martin, very long time ago, the person, a good friend of mine at the time said, how are you going to feel about that? Like, is that going to mess with your head? And I'm like, no, I'd never really thought about it. I also didn't go into plastic surgery or into medicine thinking that I would ever end up in plastic surgery. It wasn't something that I really thought a lot about. Worked for a cardiac practice. I'd worked in physical therapy. I'm also, as you know, a nutritional therapy practitioner. I'm a licensed massage therapist. So I'd worked around a lot of medicine, but never really thought about working in plastic surgery. It just kind of, as you know from listening to our 100th episode where we talk about how this all came to be, just something that happened. I was in a small town. I met this plastic surgeon. And we, here we are. So I didn't think that it would mess with my body image. And I can say that it really hasn't, but it definitely has, of course, impacted how I think of my own body a lot. And I think of that mostly in a really positive way. It's really been a net positive in my life for sure, because it's given me a lot of perspective. And it's a perspective that unless you do this and you see people's bodies on a daily basis, you don't get. And that's, I think, what's hard for people is when you think about yourself, it's a very isolating thing. You're thinking about yourself in isolation and comparing yourself to people who you aren't seeing in real life most of the time. You're comparing yourself to images online. We had a great episode recently where we talk about the dark side of plastic surgery. And one of those real dark sides is comparing ourselves to what we see in social media and even before that in print media. And, there's filters, there's editing. And I think that we have done better as a society in having perhaps some print media less edited, but that has certainly not been the case with social media. And even now, there is a function on phone cameras. If you're taking a group photo, you can literally have it change every person's face to be the best face they made. But how weird is that? What are we doing to ourselves? So when we're thinking about our body image, I think we all want more. That's my number one thing on the list here. We all want more. We all want something else. It seems like we're always seeking for something, right? We want to be thinner. We want to be taller. We wish we had this. We wish we had that. But there's always something in our mind that becomes that thing that makes us seek out something, right? Something else. We want more. Add to that the fact that we are our own worst critic. We find the angles of ourselves that other people don't look at us from. The times that women have come into our office and said that, oh, well, the lighting in here just isn't as bad as it is in my closet at home. Or it doesn't, when I'm in a dressing room, or if I do this, and then they contort themselves entirely and or compress tissue together to show us that there is cellulite in an area when they squeeze it. We're our own worst critic. No one else is looking at us like this. And the lighting in our office is not that flattering. In fact, our Aspen office had terribly unflattering lighting. It was these crazy overhead fluorescent light bulbs that were terribly unflattering. But what you see when you see the people who feel this way about themselves is that there's so much beauty also in everything. There is not a person who has walked into our office who I haven't thought this person is interesting and dynamic, and perhaps they have an issue that they're struggling with, but that doesn't take anything away from them as a whole and as a human and the beauty of this person. We do reconstructive surgery facial reconstructive surgery. We talk about being on trauma call from time to time. And, you really see that bodies are truly amazing. And that's my final thing on the list here, is that bodies are incredible. And I think we take ourselves out of that when we focus so much on one little critique we have with ourselves and blame a lot of other things on it when we don't realize how absolutely incredible our bodies are. We talk a lot about swolverining on our podcast, which is our ability to heal, right? We're all swolverining. I mean, how freaking incredible is that? Like, that's something your body does that you don't even have to think about. I mean, you have a little cut on your hand and you have a cut on your hand and your life goes on. If you had to think in your mind, oh my gosh, send white blood cells to there, I need this, I need that to make this thing heal, you would literally do nothing else but focus on that. And that would happen all day, every day. Our bodies are so incredible. They carry babies. They carry you throughout your life. So that's what something when you look at your body image and your perspective and your views of perfection, like, know that there's so much that goes into it, because we're our own worst enemy. We're always judging ourselves incredibly harshly. We all want more. This is the natural inclination of humans. But when you take a step back and realize that there's beauty in everything around us and your body is truly incredible, it makes it so you can then start to define what really your best body is. So there is a version of your body that is your best to you. There's a version of your body that might be your best to your partner, to the people around you. And that's just the way it is, right? Everyone might have a different idea of what makes your body perfect or your body the best it could possibly be. And it's not always the best it could possibly be all the time. There's injuries, you're sick. You might have what is physically on the outside the most amazing looking body. But if you were really sick, is that really your best body in that moment? It absolutely isn't. So when you think, and we talk to patients a lot about this, about expectations. This is something else that we talked so much about in our Dark Side of Plastic Surgery, because it really, the expectation of what is doable, and we'll talk more about this when we talk about whether or not plastic surgery is the answer. What is your expectation? And do you understand what it truly takes to achieve and maintain that? And are you willing to do that? Like, you might know what it takes, but are you willing to do that? And for how long are you willing to do that? Also, what stage of life are you at? It's rare. In fact, I can say this with 100% certainty that no woman has ever come into our office and said, oh gosh, if I could just have my pregnancy body back. But you know how many times they say, I wish I could have my pre-pregnancy body back? But both of those things are a life stage. And there's something that took effort and work to get to and may or may not be achievable again, right? I mean, if someone came into us and said, wow, can you give me my pregnancy body? Well, we can't. Like, that we can absolutely not do, because that's not something that is true to your life stage. You are not pregnant. We can't make your body look like that unless you get pregnant. So to think that you can make your body look any specific way in a stage of life that is maybe not realistic is a little unrealistic. That goes back to our expectations. Think a lot about this with people who come in and say, well, when I was 20 or even when I was in high school, and these are women who may be in their 50s and above, when I was in high school, I had the tiniest waist. Like, well, that's great. And you have 4 kids and you are decades older than that. So is that realistic for this life stage? I put on my list of things that define your best body, again, is that bodies are amazing, because you can push your body to levels that you probably did not think were possible. But are you willing to do what it takes to keep that? Is it appropriate to your life stage? And does it even fit your expectations? And you might find that you can push your body to a point that is extreme, and it still might not meet your expectations. And that goes back to us being our own worst critic and the mental part of this that is so much part of your best body. I put bodies are amazing here for another reason too, because I think there are times, because of the life stage, perhaps that people hold back from getting their best body, or they resign themselves to thinking that they don't deserve it, or they can't do what it takes to achieve it when they absolutely can. Sometimes what it takes to achieve this might be surgery, and that might be a pretty simple fix. And maintaining it, again, is pretty easy. You maintain what you've got right now, like, that's going to stay. And that is something that people ask us, well, how long will this last, right? Everyone wants to know, how long will the surgery last? If it's something like a facelift, how long did it take to get looking like this? Well, it probably took 50 years of your life to age this much. However, the bulk of that aging really took place in the last decade. So another 10 years, you're probably going to have progressed another 10 years that you dislike and want to turn the clock back. Something like a tummy tuck. If you maintain your weight, which should be stable, you should be your happy, stable weight prior to going into a tummy tuck surgery, will last forever. I mean, that's talk about like there's a good trade-off right there. One surgery, like maintenance, that's pretty effortless forever. So sometimes I think people hold back from achieving something truly incredible with their body because they're afraid. Again, because of social media or stigma, they think that surgery has stigma around it that they don't want to do. And that's unfortunate too. Or they resign themselves. Some of our questions from listeners' episodes where someone will say, I'm 60. Am I too old for a breast lift? Like, oh my gosh, no. And why have you waited this long? So knowing that you can push it farther is sometimes the push people need. You shouldn't just take what you've got just because you're X age. You also, though, have to realize that because you are in this stage of life, perhaps you cannot turn things back so extremely. And those are all things that are going to help you really understand what your best body is and how you can achieve it, how you can maintain it. Expectations are so critical in this. This is where I do wish I could get Dr. Martin's input on this, because I feel like he would have some great things to say as well, because we're in this together, right? We look at bodies all day, every day. We see so many people in so many life stages who are at varying levels of happiness with their body. And all of them, even the ones who think they are a disaster, right? Like, oh, like this is terrible. You've probably never seen someone with this much cellulite or this much loose skin. Oh, I guarantee you we have. And you know what? Some of those people could care less about it. They don't even care. Like they come in to see us for something completely different. They might have terrible cellulite. They don't care. They might have a lot of loose skin hanging on their abdomen. They don't care. The opposite is also true. They might need a facelift, quote unquote need. This is elective surgery. We've talked about needs. Where we're looking at them like, oh my goodness, this would be where you should spend your money, the stuff that people see, but all they care about is this little bit of fat on their abdomen. That's all and that's what my point about wanting more, that's what they want, right? They don't care about their face, where we're looking at them like, gosh, if I had the money, I would be getting a facelift because this is what I see. But what defining your best body is very much a thing about what you see in yourself and understanding that you can make changes, and you should. This is your body. Like, this is our life. Like, change it up, do what you want. And your body has the ability to do that with you in most cases. So now it's time to answer the question that everybody is wanting to know. Is plastic surgery the answer? Is this the only way you are going to achieve what you have already now decided? You know what your perfect body is. You got your expectations in check. Is plastic surgery the answer? And there are three options here. Yes. Exclamation point, yes. Plastic surgery is the answer. There is no other way you're going to achieve this without surgery. Doesn't mean you don't have an amazing body, but if you want your version of your best body, which you've identified because you've gone through the steps on the last two slides, yes, the answer is yes. Okay, and we'll talk more about yes. The answer might be no. There you go. That's easy. Sometimes we tell people no because their expectation is a bit out of whack. That's the number one reason we tell people no. Sometimes we'll tell people no, maybe. And that's usually no, not right now, or yes, if. We might have a patient who wants a tummy tuck but has a hemoglobin A1C or is pre-diabetic. They have blood sugars that are a little out of control. Their BMI might be a little high. So those patients, the answer is not no, totally. It's no, not right now, or maybe, can you do this first? And then the answer is yes. So when is the answer yes? I mean, this is awesome, right? Like, there is nothing better than somebody coming in and having a very obvious thing they don't like. Right? Not saying we don't like it, saying they don't like it. They have skin that hangs over their abdomen that they don't like. They have facial aging. They have arm skin. You know what? Yes. And that we do the surgery, they move on with their life. Life is good. Okay? That is the best case scenario. We love that. The other times people come in and they think nothing can be done, right? They're like, or they have resigned themselves, stage of life, that perhaps they don't maybe deserve to push their body as far as it can go, right? We had a consultation with a patient last week who didn't want a full tummy tuck because they were concerned about the scar, but would be okay with a mini tummy tuck based on what they had been told by other surgeons, which was kind of ridiculous, right? As we've talked about many times on our podcast, the surgery you need is the surgery you need. And we're not going to tell someone, okay, yeah, get the mini because you don't want the scar, right? It's not going to fix her issue. And I straight up said that to this patient. This will not resolve the problems that you have. So getting this surgery that is a mini tummy tuck because you, in your mind, are convinced this scar that is maybe this long, 6-7 inches long versus this long is somehow going to alter your life when you could get like full resolution of everything that's going on in your abdomen with that little bit longer scar. Why wouldn't you do that? Like, go all the way. Like, don't just halvesy this. You know, this is a person who was so concerned with their abdominal skin that they were concerned about it in intimate situations or felt fine, you know, wearing a two-piece maybe when they were standing, but as soon as they sat down, they were super self-conscious. Like, well, then why wouldn't you just go all the way and fix this all the way? Like, the rest of your body is banging. Like, you look incredible. You have a husband with a six-pack. Like, so a couple more inches of scar is going to be the difference between you having like an absolutely flat, completely flat abdomen, and you may be getting a little bit of a fix on the lower abdomen, but having this upper abdomen that's still all kind of wonky and weird. And like, is that worth it? No. You know, so there are definitely times where people think that they can maybe not push the envelope as far as they can. Someone might come in and think that, you know, they just need a little bit of lipo on like one little area. We look at them and say, yes, you know, yeah, you could have lipo there. However, like more bang for your buck is going to be to do lipo here and here because it's going to do this for you. It will change this. And they're like, well, this is all that really bothers me. Great, we'll just do that. Those people, I would say 90% of the time come back and realize like, wow, yep, I liked that. That was good. And I see what you're saying now. Let's do the thing you recommended. So you can push it. Right? Plastic surgery, yes, can be the answer. And it can be the answer in so many amazing positive ways. There's the phenomenon that I've talked about before, the stars in the sky. You do one thing on somebody and then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, what else can you do? And you don't want to get too far down the road of a slippery slope because with us, we're never going to let you do something that's going to make you look weird. There's still appropriate things, but there is more. And that's my point about your body is amazing and incredible. Like, yeah, push it. Like if you have the time, the energy, the ability to have surgery, and you're a candidate for it, do it. I mean, so many people want to halvesy it on so many things like, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm afraid of the downtime. I'm afraid of what other people will think. I'm giving up. You know, if you listen to our myth episodes where we talk about the myths of some of these surgeries, a lot of the myths surrounding them is how much judgment you will get from other people. How is that any worse than the amount of judgment you have already given yourself? Like when you have judged yourself so harshly for so many years. I mean, we have patients who come in who will say they use that word hate. They've hated this thing for X amount of years. And I guarantee you in those years, no other person has looked at them and been like, wow, that's bad. So like, let's take care of this. Like get on with your life in a way that is positive to you. So yeah, you can see I'm a fan because I have seen the positive side. I mean, we talked a lot about the dark side of plastic surgery in an episode recently, but the rest of our episodes, we talk so much about the positives. And I think the positives really can't be overstated in that they let you move on with your life. They take away the thing that is maybe taking up so much of your mental energy and your concern about it and your perception of other people's perception of it, that when that goes away, it can do a couple of things. It can really free that space up. It can also be somewhat depressing, which sounds strange for people because you realize that this thing that you spent so much of your life and your time and your energy focusing on meant nothing to anybody else. It really didn't. And you let it affect you for a really long time. So I always tell people that the best surgery is the surgery you had 2 weeks ago. And I really do mean that. You know, if you are so inclined and have the ability, have a conversation with a board certified plastic surgeon, see if you're a candidate for this procedure and like get it taken care of and let your body be your version of your best body ever now. So the times that are no, we talked about too. I mean, there are definitely times when expectations just, they outweigh any potential benefit, and or someone has potentially had several procedures already and they still aren't happy with the outcome. More surgery is rarely the answer. You know, it's It's tough when someone has gone really far down the line of having surgery over and over and over again, and it hasn't fixed what they wanted it to fix. But you also then have to tell them, like, it maybe isn't ever going to fix what you want it to fix. And those tend to be times when people are chasing a specific look that they are not getting because their expectation is that they will look a certain way, when the reality is the best plastic surgery just makes you look like the best version of yourself. Nowhere in this podcast have I said, get somebody else's body. You're only ever going to get the best version of your body. And yes, there are extreme things that can be done to augment that. However, they rarely leave you looking like a better version of yourself, because they start to morph you into looking like something that is not quite you. And that's where you look at people and you're like, like something's off there, right? Yes, like something is peculiar here, and I'm not sure what it is.
They all start looking the same, which is weird. Yeah.
That is creepy too. And that was definitely a look for a while. There was, when plastic surgery became more commonplace, that doctors would give a specific nose. Like you could literally look through like a lookbook, and they would try and make your nose look exactly like somebody else's nose, or the nose that they thought it should look like, when they did not honor the fact that that is not your nose. So the nose tend to come mostly around expectation, or sometimes you don't need surgery. Sometimes you can do it yourself. Like there might be something, and in the cases where people have made to our office, like they usually have a bigger issue, right? You're never going to get your abdomen skin to go away. I'm sorry, you can get the fat to go away. And as Dr. Martin will tell you, no amount of Pilates is going to fix your rectus diastasis. No amount of seaweed wraps are going to get rid of your excess skin. No amount of intermittent fasting is going to get rid of your skin. Will they help? Yes. Your facial aging. No amount of internal threads are going to give you a facelift. They will not. Or external tightening devices. Like those things are not going to do it. So there are things that you absolutely cannot fix yourself. However, in some cases, there might be something you could do yourself. Like maybe you realize like, wow, it's not so bad. Like maybe I can do this and feel good about my body as it is. Great. Like sometimes surgery is not the answer. Or maybe a non-invasive thing is the answer. It might be. There are times when a non-invasive answer is the answer. Again, the patient population that we see, it's rare because we are a surgical office. So we tend to see people who are candidates for surgery. However, there are a lot of patients who don't want it, whatever. Then the answer to getting your perfect body, if the achieving part of our last slide is not something you're willing to do, meaning you are not willing to have a scar of any kind, well, then surgery is not the answer for you. Scars heal, scars fade. The patient who was, not thinking that she would never do it, not have a full tummy tuck because of the little bit of the extension of that scar, if the answer for her was no, I'm not willing to do that, well, then there you go. The answer is no. So there are times when the patient is the one saying no because they are not willing to do what it takes to achieve that, meaning trading a scar for a result that they want. And that's fine too. And then our maybes, sometimes it's a combination of things. Sometimes it's a combination of surgery and something else. Sometimes you just have to get there. And that happens too. We have a lot of patients who come in who they're like, I have to get there. Like they just have to mentally process it. And that is totally fine. Surgery will always be there. And I say that to patients. Surgery will always be here. It's not going anywhere. As long as you're healthy enough for surgery, you're healthy enough for surgery. So whether you're, doing a surgery at 25 or a surgery at 55, as long as you are age appropriate for it, you're in the right life stage to have the surgery you're considering, surgery will be there. You don't have to do it now. You do it next year. I will tell you this, surgery's not getting any cheaper. So if you're at all inclined, the best surgery is the surgery you had 2 weeks ago. So once you've decided that yes, then let your maybes kind of fall away. Like meet with a board certified plastic surgeon, get your questions answered, make sure you're a candidate. My point with all of this, and this may have seemed you had to hear me talk a lot with no fun interjections from my Dr. Martin co-host, is that your perfect body exists and you're in it because it is the only body you have. Like this is your body and you can make it perfect for you. There may be things you always struggle with, and everyone does. We literally have women who come in our office who you could survey 1,000 people on the street and they would look at this woman and be like, there is nothing, like do nothing. She is perfect skin, perfect hair, lean, good muscle tone. People would look at her and think there was nothing wrong with her. And she could run down a list 3 pages long of all the things that she wants fixed that are wrong with her. So your perfect body is the one you have. It's the only one you have. So figuring out what it takes to have your expectations, your ability to achieve and maintain the body that you want. Maybe it takes a good plastic surgeon, board certified plastic surgeon, which you can find. There is a link in the description box below to find a plastic surgeon in your area. And that's it. If the answer is yes, get your surgery and go on loving your body. If the answer is no, there you go. Go on loving your body. And if the answer is maybe, you'll get there. And maybe you won't, maybe you will. It's all up to you. And I want everyone to feel empowered that your body is incredible. You can push it really far. You can push it a little farther with surgery, but you can get it. Your perfect body does exist, and plastic surgery may or may not be the answer for you. So hopefully everybody found that helpful. I did tease in our last episode that in this episode, we were going to do a best year of your life update, and we are going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back because I have a very special guest star coming in, and I am going to update everybody. So if you're like, okay, that's it, I don't want to hear any more of Amy talking, and I certainly don't want to hear her talk about her best year of her life challenge, that's fine. No harm. Come back next on the 15th of December when we'll be doing our top 5. And hopefully that you come back because I'm going to talk about something super special that I did, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back. And now I have a whole crowd at the table. I should caveat this before I introduce my guest star and say that Dr. Martin is not sick. It is the week of Thanksgiving, and we all have really busy weeks at the moment. So that is why Dr. Martin is here in spirit. He is fine. He is super healthy. But I do have a special guest with us. I have Lexi.
Yay!
Yay, Lexi.
Yay.
Welcome,
Hello,
Lexi.
everyone.
Lexi is our medical assistant. If you've listened to the podcast before, you've definitely heard us talk about Lexi. We could not do it without her. She is amazing. And since we're talking about, let's just say, so Best Year of Your Life Challenge, we go back to, when was that, Nils? February?
Yes.
I think. Yep. So put this challenge out to Dr. Martin. I was planning on doing a photo shoot is what I said I was going to do. And as it turns out, I guess I did kind of in a roundabout way do a photo shoot, but I also did 2 NPC bikini shows. So Lexi is going to ask me some questions and talk about my show because this was kind of a foreign concept to a lot of people in the room. Yep. Nils got to go to his first show.
Was, yes.
Lexi went to her first bodybuilding show. So that's what we're going to talk about. So there's some pictures Nils is going to put up of my show. If you are not watching this and you would like to, again, we are on YouTube at Jason Martin MD. So here I am. I did a NPC, which is National Physique Committee bodybuilding show. It is an amateur level bodybuilding show, and it's the kind of least muscular of all the categories is bikini. Bikini categories. The bikini is the category at the bottom. Then we go wellness, figure, physique, women's bodybuilding, and fitness. So there are a lot of categories. This is a local level show. If you've looked at bodybuilding online, things like the Olympia that just happened, you are seeing professional athletes, which I am not. So as this all kind of came about, I started working with Joe Klemzeski, awesome coach. And we were preparing for a photo shoot. Thought we'd do a photo shoot in maybe September. So preparing for a photo shoot. Went to a bodybuilding show this summer and I was like, oh gosh, actually it was early. It was like May. And I'm like, maybe I should ask Joe about competing. I'd thought about it before, but never really gotten super serious about it. I have a lot of friends who are competitors, a lot of bikini competitor friends. A lot of our patients are bikini competitors. So somebody had been around a lot. The gym that Nils and I worked at, there were several guys who worked out there who did bodybuilding shows. Courtney, who's been on the podcast, was Mr. Colorado. So his wife, Jennifer, she also she does figure, which is a higher category, is a more muscular category than bikini. So surrounded by a lot of competitors. And he was fully on board. He's like, sure, let's do it. So my plan was to do this show, the Tokyo Joes, which is the kind of the last show in Colorado. Well, it is. It's the last show of the season in Colorado. It was in November. And several weeks before that, unbeknownst to literally anyone except my coach and Catherine, who's my assistant, and I only had to tell her so she didn't book me patients on the day of my first show, I actually did a show 3 weeks prior. So I did a show in October, and then I did this show in November. So the show in October was completely on the DL. No one knew. I just did it. And I'm really glad I did because I was able to get a lot of the kinks worked out and refine things a bit for the second show. These pictures that are up, Nils and Sarah took. You can see my hair is curly in the first show. And Nils, I can send you some pictures. Well, the stage shots are up of my first show, but I can also send you some pictures of my first show so you can see the difference. Mm-hmm. So my first show, I had my hair straightened, which I have told Lexi.
Yes.
Lexi, one year, offered for Christmas to let me get my hair straightened. And I'm like, that actually sounds like, what did I say?
Oh, she was not a fan. I'm glad I tell her things in advance now because I try to like surprise her with all these fun things. And then she's like, that sounds terrible. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I didn't actually get that, because then I'm always thinking, I'm like, oh, this is going to be so good. And this is going to be a great gift for her. And then she's like, that sounds like the worst thing ever. Or like Catherine, like, will like behind the scenes be like, so I kind of like drop this in like just out of nowhere. And she's like, she doesn't want that.
Yeah.
She's like, let's not do that. And I'm like, okay, so we won't.
So as it turned out, I was not a fan. So I had my hair straightened for the first show, and I felt like it kind of made me look a little old, and I was not a fan. So I decided to just kind of buck the trend. NPC tends to be kind of like these beachy waves, as you can kind of see from all the other women in this lineup. They all have this kind of blown out beachy look. It just didn't really work for me. I felt like I ended up just looking kind of matronly. So second show, I just came out with all the curls going.
Which was greater too, because I thought when your hair was straight, your hair looked really, really dark, and it didn't really look like you. I had to do like a double take of those pictures, and I felt like I was like, oh, that is her. Like your hair looked super dark. Yeah. I don't know what was going on with that, but this looks so. I mean,
more
amazing.
Me.
Yeah, it was. It's just you.
Way more me. I did my makeup myself for both shows, which again they can you can have your makeup done, but that was really kind of stressing me out. And I am no makeup artist by any means, but I felt like that part went really, really well. And I did my hair the second time. I didn't do my hair the first time. You can see in this picture that I'm a very unnatural shade of tan. And yes, everyone is that tan. All of us on stage are that tan. To get this tan is not easy. And I was in fact thinking about that today as we were setting up. I'm like, oh my gosh, 3 weeks ago today, I was getting tanned for the second time. The tan was the worst part, just because it's sticky and you have to shave. Well, let's take a step back. So to prep for the tan, you first have to start exfoliating your entire body pretty aggressively. And my skin is very sensitive, and you have to shave your whole body, which is harder than you might think. Like, it is not easy, especially when you are stage lean. I mean, the amount of times I cut the top of this shoulder because I'm literally just like shaving directly over bone. And like as a woman, like trying to shave over your collarbones. It was really challenging. So shaving your whole body, you got to buff yourself to like, I felt like I was just like scraping skin off of my body at that point. And then you go get tanned. Well, the tan is so sticky. And it kind of stays like damp, wet on you like all night. And if you sleep in it, you cannot wear deodorant, you cannot shower. So you go, by the end of the show, it's been like a day and a half since you've had a shower. You've been covered in tan. And then you get more tan at the show, which I will talk about when I talk about the show. But yeah, so super tan. You wear this glammy bikini. You stand up on stage. You do a lot of poses. So that's in a nutshell what I did. And I did place at both of my shows. So the first show was the Colorado Classic. This was the one in October. And I got third place in True Novice. So because I had not done an NPC show before, I could enter True Novice. So True Novice, I got third place. And in Masters over 40, because she's an old lady, I got fifth. I will tell you what, man, these over 40 women come to play. Like, we have been training for a long time. These chicks are conditioned, and there was a big class. So this show, the reason I was so like, oh yeah, I'll enter a show earlier, like it's a small show. Well, it turns out that this show had like more than double the competitors that had the year prior. So it ended up being not a small show. It was a super competitive show, but I still did place in both of those. So that was the Colorado Classic. And then I did the Rocky, which I know was a huge show. In fact, several years ago, they had like well over 300 competitors. And this time it was just under 200. So this was a really big show. My number in the first show, I think I was 56 maybe in my first show, just my competitor number. And then in the second show, I was 144. It just shows you how much bigger it was. So at the Rocky, I got fifth place in Novice D. That is by height. So I could do novice. I can not do true novice again. I think there were 12 or 13 in the novice. And then there were 9 in 40 plus.
Yeah, that was one of the biggest groups.
It was.
Yeah, it was the first one. Yeah.
I think it was the biggest one. Same thing in my first show. The largest category at the show was the over 40. And then I got fourth place in the 40 and over. So that's how I placed. So I did come home with some hardware each time. They're very heavy and very loud. I'll try not to make noise with them. All right. So so that's what I did. So that was what I ended up doing. The photo shoot part of it was Nils was there. He took a bunch of photos and so did a lot of other people. So there we go. I did not do like a fitness photo shoot per se, but I mean, this was a lot of fitness work. So Lexi,
yes.
What do you want to ask me about my show? Ask away.
I mean, it really is an eye-opening experience, I think, when you go to something like that and you've never been, because first of all, you have the boys categories, the men, and then you have the girls categories. And when you first look up at there's like all the category, I was like, what, first of all, am I looking at? Like, there's bodybuilding and there's physique and there's classic physique. And so it at first was a little bit hurting my head because I didn't know what I was looking at. But it is a whole different world. Like, you have all these like super buff people walking around with their like silk robes on that look like they have been like down like in like Jamaica or Bermuda for weeks.
Fried chicken.
I don't know how long they are. And that's it. If there's no light, like they do not look the same that they do up there. When they're like standing next to you, you're just like, oh my goodness. So how many, I do want to know how many layers of tan that is, because it looks like it has to be a ton, because like I said, just individuals walking by me, I was like, that can't just be like 1 or 2 layers. Like it was a ton. It was so many that like it was crazy.
Let me tell you about the tan. Let me break down the tan process for you.
Please do, because I know that you had to do it, because I mean, you and I are super light and you look like
I blend in with the screen. I glow in the dark. I will also
when you were not on the screen like this, like these pictures show, I'm telling you, like you look like you were so dark that I have not seen you in weeks. You have been out tanning on the beach somewhere. So I just like
So like I said, the tan process, even though I had heard a lot about it and seen a lot of people do it, having it done to yourself is a very strange experience. So you walk into a room that literally looks like a kill room. Like there is plastic up like 8 feet on the wall, because you're doing this at the first show, we still got the first coat of tan was at a hotel, but then the second coats of tan were at a venue, which was like an auditorium. Either way, though, you walk in and there's like the little pop-up tents. There's like 4 little the black pop-up tents. It's really loud because there's like 6,000 fans going and then all the compressors for the tanning guns. So it's loud. There's people like shouting at you to take all your clothes off and put them up against the wall. So you know this, like, so you are naked and you stand in this tan booth and they spray you, and then I mean, when you walk in, like I said, there's plastic all over the walls and the floor. There's fans going. It's real loud. It's real like, oh gosh, this is your first time. And you also, then there's all these people standing around. I called them, I said we were all like a bunch of broken gingerbread men, because you can't let any part of your body touch itself. So your hands are kind of up and or out and away from your body. You're sticking your butt out as hard as you absolutely possibly can, keeping your legs spread apart, and you're standing in front of a fan to dry. So that's what you walk into. So the ladies yelling at me to take off, which I knew. I took all my clothes off. There were people there who weren't, and they were like looking like terrified, and she's like, take everything up. I'm like, I knew. Like
I'm coming in kind of prepared. Yeah. These poor other people, I feel bad.
That, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm around naked people. I'm like, being naked doesn't bother me. So I take everything off. You stand there. They spray you with 1 coat of tan, and then you go naked gingerbread man it out in a freezing room. And let's be real, we all have like 8% body fat at this point. With fans blowing on you aggressively, other people getting tanned, it's loud, it's noisy, and you're all just kind of standing there like looking awkward at each other like, hey, isn't this the weirdest thing you've ever done? Like, oh my gosh. Here we all are. So then once you get kind of dry, then they come around, they're like wheeling you down with like a rolly paintbrush, right? A roller, like make sure you're not dripping. So then you get a second coat. And then you go stand in front of the fans again until you're dry, and then they tell you can leave. And you're like, oh my gosh, what just happened to me? And like you're not that, I mean, it's darker right away. Like you look tan right away, but you're all sticky and gross, and you have to go home and try not to mess it up. So no amount of water can touch this tan. So you have to be very careful with doing things like going to the bathroom, because you cannot get splashes on this tan. Because again, you're wearing this teeny tiny bikini, and Nils was nice in these pictures. You'll see the whole routine. You'll see how tiny this bikini is on the back. You can have no drops of water or anything on you, which there were things I didn't even think about. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wear contacts. So I guess I'm just going to not. And your hands get real dark. Like I'm just not going to wash my hands.
I'm not going to put that in my eye.
When I put my contacts in the next day, like even just dipping in to grab it, like the water instantly turned orange. I'm like, okay. So then you get there the next morning, and you sign up ahead of time for your top coat of tan. Thankfully. So same thing. And at the first show. Oh my gosh, because it was at an auditorium and it was a beautiful venue, but like, I don't know if they really thought this through, like where all the top coats were going to be. So they had 2 pop-up tents set up where they were tanning the men. And she's like, we're just going to walk in. Just don't look at them. I'm like, okay. So like, I just walk in, get in my booth. The woman next to me, she's like, oh my gosh, they're naked. I'm like, so are we. like we are all naked. Like, yeah. So the second coat of tan though dries a lot faster. So you get sprayed and that is when you are dark. So that's your top coat.
Oh, okay.
Top coat is dark. Okay, well, so that's, you get that. And that's when you have to wear the silk robe and like, yeah. So you're drier though. And it's not as sticky, which, oh my gosh, like thankfully it was not as sticky, which was all I really was caring about. So the first show, then you get glazed right before you go on, like before you go on stage, you get glazed. That's why you're so shiny, right? So you get glazed. So that's how it goes. And then before finals, if you need to be touched up, which at my first show I did not. I didn't need any touching up. I just went and got glazed. It was awesome. All I needed was glaze. Super chill day. It was really good. At the second show, I got all of that done. And then in between, I went back out to take pictures for my coach after I'd gotten my top coat and realized that there was like a line on the inside of one of my legs that had just not gotten, like I wasn't because I got it wet, like it had just not gotten tanned. Okay. So I had to go back in and have them redo like my legs. Okay. So that was coat number 4 at that point. Well, so then I got glazed. So then after prejudging before finals, I had like a little something. I had a spot or something on my leg that like looked a little weird, like maybe I'd touched it or something. So I got another coat and more glaze. And then there was something else that happened, so I had to get touched up again. So I had, by the end of the second show, I feel like 1,000 coats of tan on. Like, but it doesn't really make you any darker at some point, like because you're so dark. I mean, it's the initial coats that are the ones like that mature that kind of give you that depth of color. The top coat is kind of, I mean, they could, unless they went crazy and just put tons of top coat, but the top coat is almost like, I mean, the pictures don't really show it, but you know from seeing me in person, I was almost kind of like that mahogany kind of color.
Yes.
That's the top coat. And then the shiny. Oh my goodness. I had so much tan on. Like, yeah.
You did.
Yeah. So that's the tanning process. There you go.
So question though, you're talking about the glaze. So I saw, especially on like bodybuilders, is that extra? They were super shiny.
Yes. Different glaze.
Okay. So it's glaze. It's not like oil.
Some guys use oil.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And some people do their own tan. So I did the show tan both times because, oh my gosh, like just shaving my body was enough work. There's no way I feel like I could tan my whole self. Like, and there are a lot of competitors, pro level competitors, Olympians do their own tan. I'm like, I don't even know how they do it. So there are though a lot of people, if they're in like a team, like they'll have a coach that like literally puts this like lacquer paint on them. It's like glaze times 1,000. Mm-hmm.
Oh, they were so shiny they could be on like a slip and slide.
Yeah.
Or like I felt like because they were so dark and they had so much shine on them, it almost felt like they almost look like sunburn in certain like angles of the light. Yeah, so I felt really like nervous about like how I was like, I don't know if that's supposed to look like that or if that is how it looks. I just feel like you got sunburn. So tropical island just comes back. I don't know. So that was just something interesting. So I guess another big thing, like you said, so we saw the guys first. I don't know how it was in the morning because Nils went in the morning and then I went in the afternoon for the second part. But all the guys went first, all their categories go first. And then is that how it always is?
Yes.
Why do the guys get to go first and the girls have to go after?
That is a great question. And there is a really definitive reason for that. Okay. So this is the way it is at like, let's say like a local level show. You'll see shows like huge shows, right? Like the Olympia takes like 4 days where they'll break up categories and do men and women like maybe on the same day, like different categories on the same day and different categories on the other day. But at a show like this where everybody's going on the same day, you want the competitors who have the most intense peaking to go first. So that's why we start with bodybuilding. So men's bodybuilding goes before men's classic physique, before men's physique, because the bodybuilders are the ones who they're peaking. And I don't know if you have questions about peaking.
Can you tell me what peaking is?
There we go. Well, that's why I'm like, I didn't want to.
This would be great.
I didn't want to trump all over your question. Dr. Martin loves to do that to me.
I'm trying to be nice here. I do have questions, but that I would like to know what that means. So
your peak week is just the week before your show.
Okay.
So it's where you you're not going to change your physique, but like for men's bodybuilding, they will, they want that kind of really dry, tight look.
Okay.
So they will sometimes water deplete or do other more extreme things to get a specific look on stage where their muscles look incredibly full, incredibly pumped. And that takes a lot of like really specific manipulations of sodium and water and food. So the timing of that is so critical. So if you're in a category, I mean, yeah, I even talk about this for myself, you think you know when you're going to go on stage, but if you don't go on stage for several hours after that, like you don't know when to eat, like that can really throw off your peak. For a bikini competitor, I mean, it's like I said, it's the least muscular category. So it's the least meaningful, which is why bikini goes last. There is one other reason why bikini goes last. Bikini also goes last because there's tons of bikini competitors.
Yes.
So it keeps people at the show.
Well, I mean, it was good looking at because like I said, it did change too, because I didn't know what classic physique or so there was whoever the announcer was he
did a great
really,
job.
really great. But I know that he used to do that as well. And that was really awesome. He said he had to start there, but to see just like the slight differences. I mean, bodybuilding was so muscular, and then you went into classic physique, which was a little bit less muscular, and then physique, you saw some of them still had a lot of muscles, but then some of them weren't as muscular, but I mean, they still looked good. They were still like toned and stuff like that. So I mean, it was really cool to just kind of like see the differences in body type when you're just like, I don't actually know what I'm supposed to be looking at right now. Like, I mean, they all look really nice.
Some of it's posing too. As you saw in the men's category, there'll be a lot of crossover, like you'll see men who do bodybuilding who then also do physique, or classic physique, or guys that do classic physique who also do physique, because the posing is what is slightly different for men. It's less common now to see women, and it'll be less common for men too, because they're introducing some weight caps next season. For women to do, like, let's say figure and bikini, it used to be more common, but really if you're placing well in either of those, you're not going to place well in the other one. So you're just spending a lot of money to enter that category. Wellness and bikini is more that posing difference where you can kind of pose a little differently and do both categories, kind of like with men. Like a man could do, classic physique and physique. Classic physique, they're wearing the little baby trunks, and then in physique was when they were wearing the longer ones.
We did notice there was a change in style of clothes from one category to the other as well. One was just like black shorts, and we did notice as well. And one looked like board shorts at the very end.
Yeah, those are the physique guys. Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, they kind of just changed clothes here a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
So interesting.
And trust me, they're changing real quick backstage.
And then another big thing that I saw that was just kind of interesting too is that they just have to get, especially for bodybuilding, because they're just looking at like muscles and everything like that, because when those guys are showing off their muscles, they are like, looks like they're straining, they are hard. Shaking, where I'm just like, oh my God, like I feel like this guy is just going to shake off the stage. And then all of a sudden he looks up and he goes,
smiles.
And I was like, okay, his face doesn't match his body. But so I didn't know until you were talking, like, do they judge their faces? Do they not? Like, are you just looking at body? Like, are you just looking at where their poses are? I saw that each of them comes out to do like a little bit of like music, and then they do kind of like a little bit of a routine, which is actually kind of fun to watch because not everyone does that, especially not like the women's categories. The men are more doing that.
Yeah. So and this is only at the night show. So Nils and Sarah didn't get to see this at all when they came to pre-judging. So at the night show is when the bodybuilders do their routine. So the other people who do a routine at the night show are going to be the fitness competitors. Or did she do her routine in the morning? The fitness competitor? No, she didn't. Yeah, I think they only do that night. So the routines, and you'll see when we do the video, like everybody does like their poses essentially, but the men specifically get to do a longer like minute or minute and a half, like 60 second routine where they go through their poses. Now at that point, are they technically being judged on that? The judging has kind of already happened at pre-judging.
Okay.
So it really is just more for show, like for them to show off their physique. Are their faces being judged? Not really with the bodybuilding and the classic physique. Those are the ones in the bikini briefs. Their faces aren't really being judged at all. Now, when you get to the physique category where they're in the board shorts, then they're kind of more judging the overall look of a person. The posing, though, as you know, poor Lexi, there were many a days when Lexi was cleaning the OR and I'm like, hey, I'm just going to come in here and pose for my coach.
She's like, just do what you're doing. It's fine. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I literally sent my coach pictures with like mayo stands with stuff on them in the background. I'm like, look, he knows what I do for a living. So I'm like, this is the time. The lighting is good. Like the lighting in the OR is the best. This is where I have to take my check-in pictures. So I started before I actually... This is how, let me go back in time when I asked my coach about, did he think I would be able to do a show? And he was like, absolutely. I'm like, okay, well, let me do this. I said, will you refer me to a posing coach? Because if I can't do the posing, I know that I'm not going to do this. So I actually did a session with a posing coach before I even committed to doing the prep, because the posing for women specifically and for men too. Some of the bodybuilders, they have like 8 poses. For bikini, there's only 2. There's 2 poses that you're judged on in bikini, but for men's bodybuilding, I think there's 8. And then they're different poses for classic physique. And then physique, they just have 2.
Yeah.
Physique, they just have like a front to back like the women do in bikini, but it's a hard thing to do. And like you need to practice your posing. I mean, weeks, months. I mean, I'll practice my posing all year. Like I won't stop practicing posing because it is so critical, because you can have the best physique there, but if you don't know how to show it off. And for the guys, I mean, they are flexing so hard. Like they shake for a couple of reasons. Like some guys will shake because they're nervous and like that happens. But like when they get super shaky, I mean, they're literally flexing that hard.
I believe it. Like where they are shaking so hard that I was like, they're going to like fall out of their position because there was such hard shaking. Like it was something, like I said, I've never seen anything like it, but they looked so good still up there. It was incredible to see something like that.
Their bodies are
really
amazing.
neat.
Yeah.
Then that goes into one of my other questions then. So you're talking about your coach. So did you have 2 coaches then? You had a posing coach and you have your regular coach?
Yes.
Do you have to, does everyone invest in a coach? Do you have to invest in a coach to be able to succeed doing these kind of shows?
Not at a local level. And interestingly enough, backstage at this show, a woman put her stuff down next to me. And when you're backstage, this was something I was not really prepared for, was how many it's kind of like a lunchroom at a high school. It looks very cliquey because a lot of teams come. So a team, they'll have like 4 competitors in a show. And so they'll be in like their little clique of and they'll be posing with just themselves, or sometimes they'll take up like a huge area backstage and like all the mirror space. And, there's other etiquette things that they do that are maybe not so great, but, I was kind of just lone wolf, right? I feel like I was the only person backstage who did not have my coach with me or a team with me. And so this woman put her stuff down next to me. We started chatting, and she actually had done this exact show. She won the Rocky. She was a bikini competitor, won the overall in 2018 or 19, and then went on to a pro qualifier and came in like 6th. Well, then, COVID happened and everything else, so she hadn't competed, and she was completely self-coached. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was asking her about that. Like, wow, that would be so hard. I'm like, I just don't feel like for me specifically that I would... And you get so in your head about it. I'm sure you're asking me other parts about this with the whole prepping process that like, I don't think I could have coached myself. Are there people who do? Yeah. The posing though, oh my gosh, there's no way I could have done it without somebody teaching me. No way.
Well, because I remember further back when you were doing it, you said that your coach had told you have to start posing without a mirror.
Yes.
Because you always posed in front of a mirror, and then you even came in one day and were like, I posed once without a mirror and it is not the same thing.
No.
Like it is very different. So how different is that to do even just those kind of little things? Like, I mean, they're not little, but they seem, you've been so used to doing it that way and seeing yourself all the time. And then all of a sudden you're not, but something you have to get used to because you're going to be on stage.
Yeah, you have to do both. I did a fair amount, after that time. And that was after I went to the first timers show or the seminar. So I started posing. I would do about half and half, because you have to still be able to see yourself to make adjustments and to see what you're doing. And I would always record it. So even if I didn't have the mirror, I would still record it and watch it, because you kind of have to be able to cue yourself, do this here or move this way, or this feels like this. Because if not, I found that out from the first time I tried to pose with no mirror. I was like, oh, shoot. I don't know what to do. I only know what to see. So, and there are still some things, even look at these pictures, I'm like, oh my gosh, my shoulder, there's things that you still just forget when you get up there, that's why you just have to practice so much, because you have 15 seconds to do your routine and it goes really fast.
That's in no matter what category you decide to go into?
No, that's specific for bikini at these couple of shows that they were giving us 15 seconds. They will let someone go a little bit longer if they are enjoying the presentation. If somebody's up there wonky and, they'll be like, thank you.
Gotcha.
You. That was my first show. Thank you. I was like, my first show was so tragic.
Okay. So then within each group, you have all these groups, and then you have a bunch of categories. You have true novice, you have classic, you have open, you have masters, you have What is all the differences first? And then second, how do you know which ones you want to actually compete in, or how many you should compete in? How do you decide which ones are right for you to do that, when, especially since you've only done 2 shows now? How do you know what you're going to do? Yeah,
that's a great question. Well, you can only do true novice once.
Okay.
So that's why I did true novice in my first show. You can only do true novice once. You can do novice until you place, I think you have to win a novice. I think you can keep doing novice until you win the category. So even if you place 3rd, you can still do novice again,
Oh, okay.
You can't do novice if you've won an overall and open. Okay. You cannot. So novice is for people who've never won an overall. Same, and I'll talk more about like going pro too. So remember, these are amateur athletes. So there's true novice, then novice. They're all by height also. So within, and this is for men and women. So there's always going to be height categories within that. In women's bikini, they go up by an inch until they get to 5'7", and that's just 5'7" and above.
Oh, so that's like, novice A, novice B, novice D, novice C. That's where all the
letters. Yeah. So novice, they only go up to D because there's just, there's not that many. But then an open bikini. So I could enter. So at my first show, I could have hypothetically entered true novice, 35 and over, 40 and over, and open. I could have entered 5 categories. At the second show, I could have only entered 4 because I could not have entered true novice again. I chose, and how do you decide what to do? Well, there's a couple of things. Competing is quite costly. So you have to pay for every category you enter. So there's that. You also then, in talking to your coach, like, where am I going to be the most competitive? And this is a conversation I had with my coach before this show, because I was really considering going to, competing in the open category, because I knew that there would be less competitors in it than there would be in either the novice or the masters, because those are, like I said, the masters. That was a huge category. As Nils said, it was like the biggest one there. And it wasn't my first show as well. It was the biggest category at the show, like men or women. It was the most competitors in one class. So very competitive. So there are times when you think like, wow, well, maybe I'd be more competitive if I did open. But my coach encouraged me to he said I'd have plenty of time to play with the big girls, that I should just stay in novice and masters. I'm glad he did, because I would not have placed top 5 in the open category based on who did place and where they placed in other categories around me.
So. Okay, so sometimes you also have to see who else is there to kind of and where they kind of fall into place.
Yeah.
One of my big questions, because it came into play a lot, I felt like the announcer himself even brought it out and it became like a running joke when among like all the competitors there, it was like prep brain. And they kept like joking, like they would lose a competitor for a minute and they're like, that prep brain. And they're like, he's like, I know what that is. It's fine. It's the last show of the season. It's totally fine. I get it. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Have you had that? Like, can you tell us what he's talking about when they would talk about that?
Well, Nils knows when my prep brain hit.
Well, it's documented.
Yep. Yeah. Yes, it is. It's documented on the podcast. So there is definitely a point when you get to a pretty extremely low body fat percentage. So before the show, I was doing in-body scanning, which I know there's a plus or minus, but I've been doing it all along. So my last one, my body fat came back at 9.5. But then I didn't do one for several weeks after. So like I continued to lose body fat. So when you get as a woman, this is not as a man, men can hang at a lower body fat percentage than that. For women, most women under like, 12, 10% body fat, depending on the woman and their age and everything else in their life, are going to start to have some systemic responses to being that low in body fat. And that's where prep brain comes in. I mean, you ask Catherine. Catherine's my assistant. There were a number of times in the last like 2 months when she would come to me with like a question that had 2 options, and she would present those 2 options to me, and I would look at her and just say, Catherine, I don't care. Because like I genuinely just like couldn't even get the brain power to even care. And I think that was surprising to her because, as you know, I give a fuck about everything. So for me to be like, don't care, genuinely don't care, like you pick.
It's very shocking.
Yeah,
to say that,
because I care immensely about everything. And so I think that for sure, Nils noticed that my cadence and my ability to like come back and like have, normal human thoughts definitely decreased. Definitely did. Can definitely say that. There were just a lot of things. I mean, like the hugest thank you to anyone who had to be around me for the last, like, especially 3 months of my prep, because man, I was not always not always there. Yeah. Prep brain hits. Yep.
I didn't realize this was the last show of the year because it started making more sense at night when like the boxes of donuts and cakes and cookies, and they kept telling people to put down the cookies and come back out and like, please put down the cookie. I know you found it, like, and I know you want it.
I couldn't hear any of that backstage.
It was making the show so fun, and so it made it so like you said, you just see the following and you see. Like, it was such a fun experience, like, to see that and to be, like, and just see how, like, what's happening out there and all that, like, it was really, really funny. But then I was like, they can't eat this stuff. Like, I would never see Amy eat any of this stuff. Well, so I was like, so why are they bringing all this stuff in? And then finally, it was told that, like, oh, it's the last one. Like, they can eat things like this. And I was like, I wish someone would tell me so that I could bring stuff like this.
No, so after my first show, because I was still in prep, like I literally went home after the show and I ate my meal prep that I hadn't eaten during the show. Like I had it in my little, my little cooler bag, and I just ate one of those and drank a protein shake and went to bed. After this show, I think I told Lexi, I literally got home and you're gross, you're hungry, you're tired, you're gross. I took a bunch of goldfish and put them in a little Tupperware, and I was literally standing in the shower with one arm out, just shaking goldfish into my mouth, as I'm making my shower look like I was hosing off a Jeep.
She specifically was saying, "Don't touch me, I stink."
Oh,
and I was like, "Do you think I care?" I was like, "You smell like Tanner," and she's like, "No." She's like, "Don't," and I was like, "Come on." I was like, "I think that's the worst thing.
Bad.
Calm down."
It gets real rough. So I don't know where I was going with that.
No, I just think it was
the food. Yeah. So there are, there are seriously people will stockpile food after their show. So like I said, I was still on prep after my first show, and after my second show, I wanted the goldfish, but then what else did I have that night? I had a protein shake. It was late too. It was 9 o'clock.
You probably just went to bed.
I went to bed, and the next day it was just kind of busy, and then with the holidays and everything, going straight into Thanksgiving was kind of I didn't really have time to eat anything. We had sushi the next night, which was delicious. But yeah, I was not one to want to pile drive cookies. It honestly, because after you've been, eating a really clean diet for that long, I was I don't even know how that would make me feel.
She likes fun coffee, so she could have that again.
Yes, that was exciting.
It's still sugar-free, but it's still fun. Flavors.
I was drinking black coffee before.
Yeah, it's still fun. And then we also have fun bars that she's like, I can eat one of those again. So that was still something.
Yeah.
I guess I also want to know then too, do you think this is realistic? What if someone wanted to go, so bikini, there's the most people because that's the most realistic body type that people can achieve, correct? So that's not something more of the wellness or the fitness, which I don't know what wellness still is, I don't think, because I just know that they're more muscular than bikini is. That's all I know. That's hard too, because you're there's fitness and there's wellness for women and there's bikini, and you're okay, I don't know exactly what I'm looking for. But bikini is the most realistic body type that women at least can achieve.
Yes.
So what would you say to people who this, kind of piques their interest? Is this something that you feel most, some people can actually attain if they're not super gym rats, or if they're not what would you say to those people?
That's a great question, because that leads directly right back into the how to get your best body. Some people would look at this and be like, oh my gosh, this is your best body. Do I feel like this is my best body? It's the leanest I've ever been as an adult.
Right. But
is it my best body? No. I'm going to do way better than this next year. My body could be way better than this. But this is not maintainable. I should have said this at the beginning. This is not something I will not look like this. My coach and I already have a plan for how much, weight I will put back on in the next 6 weeks, because this being 8% body fat for a woman is not healthy. It is not maintainable.
Yeah.
So, but is it, well, it's not sustainable. It's maintainable. Clearly, I was able to get there, but it's not long-term sustainable. Yeah. Is it something that anybody could do? Absolutely. There was a woman there who, she was on my first show too. She was like, yeah, a friend of mine was doing this show, so she just asked me to join her. So I started thinking about 10 days ago, and I'm like, I said, how did you get a suit in time? She's like, I got one used, didn't look, it fit. I'm like, oh my gosh, I had a custom made suit that was took weeks to, yeah. So I'm like, how did you learn the pose? And she's like, oh, I was a dancer. I'm like, okay, that is rare. There were also women there. There was a woman at my first show. I call her the woman in the red bikini because she was in a red bikini. She was from Wisconsin. She lost over 100 pounds. She crushed it. There was a wellness competitor at this show. Same thing. When we're standing back there, both of these, I found these stories out while we're standing there tanning like freaks. This is where we have these conversations. And I'm like, damn, you have amazing glutes. She's like, yeah. And so we started talking. She lost 70 pounds, then gained it all back during COVID, then lost 100 pounds. And,
wow.
And did wellness. Oh my gosh, her glutes were freaking incredible.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I'm like, how'd you lose all that weight and keep your glutes? I used to think I had glutes, and then I lost all this weight and I have none. So yeah, it is something anybody could do. Absolutely. I believe this. Anybody could do this for sure. Now, are you willing to do what it takes to do this? That's the difference.
Exactly. Because I like food. A lot of times I didn't see you eat, you had to be very strict on what you ate to, like you said, maintain it for the time being.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, oh, I'm going to go eat these in a different room.
Which I appreciate.
I felt really bad about it, but
you guys were awesome in that.
I was like, I know this is really hard. You were eating a lot of protein, you ate a lot of eggs, you ate a lot of oatmeal.
Oh, I should also say this. Lexi's parents' farm or ranch should have sponsored my show because without them, the amount of eggs. I mean, I don't even know how many dozen eggs they gave me.
She ate so many eggs. She ate chicken eggs. She ate quail eggs. She ate all the eggs.
And those brought me in a jar of pickled quail eggs the week before my show. And that was something I could actually still eat on peak week.
It was like candy. Oh
my gosh. They were the best thing ever. That was the only way I made it through my last peak week was those quail eggs. So good.
See, you never know. It's going to be the best thing ever. But
Eggs.
No, I just think I'm so proud of you. I think this was like such a cool experience. I think it was so cool seeing it because like I said, it's not something I would ever have even thought to go to or, you know, I don't have any friends that are like running this kind of, you know, so I don't, guess what I'm saying? Like I never knew anybody who has done anything like this or even been around to experience any of the prep or any of the stuff that they've had to go through and see like kind of what you have to go through. I mean, you were doing like your check-ins for your poses and all this stuff. I mean, this was multiple times like daily just to make sure that
times a day.
Exactly, to make sure that you were where you wanted to be and all this stuff. I mean, it was a lot of work and I mean, obviously it turned out great. I mean, you were fantastic and it was so much fun to go to and so much fun just to see the following for it too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's so cool to see all the camaraderie and everything there too. I mean, everyone's cheering for everybody. It's not just sitting there going, well, I don't know that person, so I don't care. I'm not going to cheer for them. People are going to cheer no matter what, like for people, which is awesome because it just keeps everybody pumped and everybody going. And I thought that was amazing. You don't always see that kind of
it is a great
environment
community
for this kind of thing. And I really, really appreciated seeing that too. So I thought that was really, really cool as well.
That is good. I mean, I will say this, like competing is kind of a lonely thing because it's you're doing it by yourself. I mean, there are people who have teams and work out with other people, but ultimately like it's kind of, there were times when it was kind of felt really like isolating, you know, because especially during peak week, man, it's like so hard. And like when you're working really hard and it's kind of, it's just you and you are also the only one who can mess it up. But it is fun. And there were two funny things that happened at the show. The first show, you know, they do call outs. So the pictures that you're seeing right now, like the ones in the middle are my call outs. So I am in the middle of both. However, that does not mean I placed first. First place is, you know, this was second call outs. So the first group that they called out in the first show had only 3. So when I was in the middle, I was 4th. And then the next one, they called out 4 people in the first call out. So I was in the middle, I was 5th. You want to be in the middle, as Nils learned. It does not go left to right. First place is in the middle and or the first position in that call out is in the middle. So I held the middle of both of my call outs, which was awesome, but it still was 4th and 5th place, not first. So in the first show, I got second call outs and I thought I was going to be, I just wasn't sure. Like they didn't really move us around. I was still in the middle, but I was like, oh, well, maybe I'm getting 6th. I don't know. So they actually, I would have, but they kind of did some additional judging at the night show. And so I don't think the expediter was aware of that they had changed the scoring from the beginning. So she ushered me off stage. So that's what they do. Like they call the first 5 at finals and then everybody else leaves the stage. So she was like, so she pulled me off. So we're walking back behind the stage and I hear them calling my number again. And I'm like, and then they said my full name. So like I was right behind her. So I tapped her. I'm like, that's me. Like, that's me. And she's like, oh my gosh. So we start to run, right? So we're behind the stage and we're like running as they continually calling my name. So we get up to the expediter on the other side and I'm like, that's me. And like he grabs me and luckily 5th place was right there. So I was able to slide in and get my medal. So that was kind of funny. It was, you know, and kind of fun. And then I don't remember what the funny thing was at the second show. Right? They did call the wrong number, but I still knew it was me. Hey, there was something else funny that happened. Oh, with the second show, this is what it was. So it was at a big convention center for the second show. And there was that jewelry show going on next door. So I was in the bathroom before finals, like touching my makeup. And this woman comes up to me and I'm literally in the bathroom wearing this. Okay. This blue bikini, this sparkly blue bikini, tan, like a mahogany shelf, and a robe, a silk robe that is open, you know, and flip flops because I put my heels on right before stage. And she goes, so are you doing this thing? I'm like,
no, I'm here to sell you some jewelry.
Right? Yeah. No, I'm just cosplaying as a bodybuilder. I seriously was like, is she being serious? I'm like, yeah. So that she asked me about the tan. She's like, why is everybody so tan? So I had to explain to her the lights on stage, blah, blah, blah. But it was so funny. Like, are you doing this? I'm like, you think I walk around like this? Like,
it's just for fun.
Like, yeah, I'm doing this. Like, yeah, I am doing this. Also at the first show, they had us, it was in an auditorium that was really cool, but the backstage area was at part of the gymnasium. So we had access to the locker rooms, like with the showers, but the showers were all turned off, right? Because no water. And like, so I spent most of the day of the first show just in a shower stall. That's where I sent my check-ins from. I'm like, this is weird. Sitting on the floor of a locker room, which was honestly better than the second show where I was sitting on plastic, in the murder room, in the kill room. So yeah, there's funny things about the show, but it is when you're there, like you get to meet such nice people. And like the woman who was the next number to me, she was the next number to me at the first show too. So like when she rolls up next to me at the second show, we're like, oh my gosh, so it's like, it really is like, there's that community there, but so much of it, you're by yourself, and it's other people who maybe don't get it. It's like you guys. And that's what, I mean, having the support of you and Catherine and Dr. Martin, I mean, there's no way I could have done it without you guys. No way. I could never have done it ever. So having that support system and then getting to the show and getting to, be surrounded by other people who are just as weird as you is good.
No, it was fun. It was a really, really fun experience. Yeah. I'm sure it was just as fun for you guys in the morning. Like said, you were there opposite of me, so I don't know how it was different for you, but it was such a fun thing to see. Like I said, and the guys were so much different than the girls. Like it was, like I said, it was wild. Like watching all of that and like seeing completely different like setups for everything. Like it was fun. And to see how into it people get. Like there were times that some of these guys walked out and I swear they were Vikings. They walked off of like a Viking ship, like their hair, like their tans, the way they moved. And I was just like, this is insane.
It's so much
like Kath
fun.
and I are looking at each other just like, did you see that guy? And there was one guy in particular too that I swear he looked like Clark Kent. His face particularly. And then we were like, see, you never know what's going on. He could just rip off that like suit and then he's going off to save the day. And there you go. And he won, and I was very excited. We were a little too excited for
Clark
like,
Kent.
We were like, Clark won.
Well, I say that with Scrubs all the time, right? Like no one, I doubt, believes that I had this going on in
exactly.
Scrubs,
You would never know because that's exactly what we said.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's watch the video. So this video, I'll kind of comment through it, but this is the video that Nils took at pre-judging, so you're going to see my routine and then the comparisons. Oh, there's another picture of me first, looking pensive. All right, here we go. There's a lot of cheering. So this is in the 45 and over category, or the 40 and over. I'm not over 45. My side pose. So this is a pose that gets judged. And then you transition to the back. Your back pose also gets judged. Yep. Turn back around. That's it. That's all you get. It goes so fast, and then you walk up. They did not say thank you. Yep. This woman, this is Kate. She was not watching. She was the one next to me. Okay, so this is comparison. So you see I'm in the middle. Nils got such a great shot. So this that was the novice category that comparison was from.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was big. That's where I got
really well.
Yeah.
That's great.
Really cool.
That's actually where I got fourth. So yeah. So there we go. Did you guys have any questions about the show?
Oh man, you guys got it. It was great. Thanks for involving us and very proud of you.
Well,
Great job, Amy.
Awesome.
It was awesome. So that's what I did. And will I compete again is probably the question that people might be thinking. I absolutely will. So I don't know if I've got like quote unquote the bug, but like, oh my gosh, like it motivated me so much to, like I said, come back and best body ever. Like, was that my best body? It was so far, but I could do so much better than that. Like I am really motivated to push it. I mean, your bodies are amazing. I had no idea that I could do this until I did it. So it was a lot of work. I did the work. I'm going to do the work again and come back and be better than ever. So yay. And please be kind. The internet is a big place. And yes, there are pictures of me wearing basically no clothes on it now. So please be kind. All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for listening. And if you made it this far in the podcast, I so appreciate you. I could not have done this without everybody's support. I mean, really, the podcast was the motivation for me even thinking about doing this. So I would never have done it without the podcast. So all of you loyal listeners, I really appreciate you. You can find all of our social media handles here. We are at Jason Martin MD and at Beauty and Surgeon Podcast. One thing I've not done this episode is beg for voicemails that I will do now. So if you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can do that at 303-630-9038. We have amazing episodes where we answer listener questions. They're some of my favorite episodes because it truly lets us know what you are interested in hearing about. If you have questions about what it's like to be an NPC bikini competitor, ask away. I've done it twice. I'm no expert, but I do have some tips that I can handle. Appreciate everyone. Next week we will be coming back, or in 2 weeks on December 15th, Dr. Martin will be back IRL in real life. So we don't have to just bouncy him around, and we'll be doing our top 5, which is my favorite episode of the year. Honestly, my Nils mashup is the reason I love the top 5. So looking forward to seeing everybody here with us in 2 weeks for the top 5, and then it'll be 2024. Oh, yikes. All right. Thank you, everyone.